I remember like, I was like, Lord, I'm going to do this audition. And like, if I don't get this part for falling asleep while driving and running over a dead body, I had no lines. If I didn't get this, I'm out of here.
Welcome back to the SafeTea Podcast. And I'm so happy to have on this episode a really dear friend, Diane Guerrero. And you all might know her as not Floritza.
Well, I'm part of Floritza.
As Floritza.
I'm the Ritza.
Yeah, Maritza.
I'm the Ritza of the Floritza.
From Orange is the New Black. That was our favorite on-screen bestie duo. And we have one half, Diane, here. And actually, Jackie introduced us. So hello, Jackie. And also beyond that, of course, she's so accomplished. Not only was she on Netflix's first ever big breakout show, Orange is the New Black, that changed the face, I think, of really streaming television and on-screen representation for Latina women. But then she went on to do Jane the Virgin and no big deal, Disney's Encanto, where, you know, she was just the hottest cartoon I've ever seen. And also co-star in our upcoming movie that we can say by the time this airs will be premiering at Tribeca Film Festival. And she also wrote a while ago, you might remember, a beautiful book called In the Country We Love, A Family Divided. And we're going to dive into that too because it's so relevant right now. But yeah, that was a long intro, but thank you so much, Diane, for making the time to be here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love you. You know, when you call me, I'm here.
Thank you. I love you too.
Yes, sweetie. I love what you're working. I love everything you're doing.
And this is just the beginning for both of us.
Just
Even
the
though
beginning.
you've had such an accomplished career, it's still the beginning in so many ways.
Oh my God, it's always the beginning. Like something ends and then there's the beginning.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Every
I feel
single
that.
day.
That's why it's so much fun to be alive, because guess what? You have an opportunity every day to try again, to do something new, to learn something.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. Well, before we get into all the juicy conversation, we always ask our guests, how do you take your tea? Or do you like tea? Is it a big part of
I
your
do
life?
drink tea. Yeah, I take it no sugar. And just plain. I like green tea. I like black tea. I like matcha tea. The matcha tea, I'll have like a matcha latte.
I love it. You like all the tea.
I like all the tea. And my favorite, the safe tea.
I love that.
My tea needs to be safe, okay?
You're so tea diverse.
I am.
With that, let's have a sip.
Ooh.
Cheers.
Cheers, dear.
Okay, so the first part of every episode is our origin story. So just to remind everyone listening or watching, the SAFE part of SafeTea stands for being seen, accepted, free, and empowered. You know, many people see what you've done and our other guests have done to this date, and it's sort of how did they get there? So I just want to dive into growing up. You know, how did you go from, I think you were outside of Boston or in Boston?
No, I was in Boston.
In Boston, daughter of Colombian immigrants, to being on a major streaming network show. Like, what was the in-between?
Well, the in-between was a lot, I guess. I was born in New Jersey, and my parents took me as like a baby to Boston, Mass, and we made a life there. And I really loved to perform as a kid. I was always like in choir or like cheerleading, stepping team. I mean, and this is, my parents didn't have any money to put me in like any extracurriculars. This was like all opportunities that were given at my school. And at the time, Boston public school system had a lot of arts programs and had a lot to offer. And as a kid who didn't do that well academically, but because I wanted so badly to participate and be good at something, I just took advantage of like, okay, if maths aren't working for me, like what's over here, you know? And
maths were never working for me.
Honey,
Maths and
it
sciences
did not.
were just...
Yes,
and being brown and South Asian, that was like a problem. You know?
Yeah, I just didn't have like any help with that. And like during that time, my parents also were, you know, holding multiple jobs. They were undocumented. So it was like really, you know, it was like a lot of like pressure at home and a lot of like adult conversations. And so I would really just escape into like movies and TV shows and musical theater. Like that's really what kept me afloat, really, with like kind of like all of the turmoil and chaos that was going on in the home. There was a lot of love, and but there was a lot of trauma kind of happening, you know. But I was able to, my parents always let me experiment with art or sports or whatever I wanted, and so I wasn't held back from that, but I had to do it on my own, like at a very young age.
But that's great. I mean, it's also, I mean, not to even get political with what's happening today with education, but that's so great to hear. I mean, look, we have somebody sitting here who had those resources and could turn to theater and art, which we need to fund more, not take money away.
Not take, exactly.
Yeah.
Taking money from arts programs is like the worst thing that you can do to a child, really. That's why I always advocate for arts programs and not defunding them, but like funding them like more and more.
We absolutely need to.
I went to a performing arts high school.
Oh, wow.
In Boston, the first.
So your parents were very supportive of this creative expression if they sent you to performing arts?
Yeah, I mean, they honestly were like, okay, what do you want? Because I went to them, I remember being like, I can't go to like the regular school. There was like a high school that like everyone went to, and it was kind of really scary. Kids were getting into trouble a lot. I was like, I don't know, I was like 4 feet or something. I mean, I haven't grown that much. I'm 5'1" now. But I was very small, and I would get picked on for my size. And so I was very, very afraid of going to the local public high school. And then there was a counselor who was just like, I had taken all like the tests, for like the Latin school or like the sciences school. And like, of course I didn't get into any of those, but she was like, honey, I have something for you. She's like, sit here, you're in the choir, you can audition to this school, and your problems will be over. Anyway, she told me about the Boston Arts Academy, and I thought, man, this is it. This is like my ticket out. And I told my parents about it, and they were super supportive about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so, I mean, not everybody has that creative journey, so that's really special. Growing up, so you were, obviously you have a beautiful voice. We all have seen your work, and you were singing and performing, and so you had that bug. There was a moment that happened in your childhood too that was quite unnerving and traumatic, and I think, relevant to kind of what's happening today with your parents, if we're okay to talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Being deported one day while you were at school.
Yeah, so it was my first year at the Arts Academy. I thought, my God, I can't believe that I got accepted into this school. Like, my dreams are coming true. And my parents' situation still wasn't like stable, but like, I mean, they were going to lawyers. There was a lawyer handling their case. And so I go home one day, this was in the spring, after like, our spring recitals, and where we were rehearsing for our spring recital. And I'm 14, I go home, and my parents' cars are there. The stove had food on it. Like, it seemed like they were there, but they were gone. And the neighbor comes and tells me, like, your parents are gone.
Wow.
Like immigration officials came and took them. And like, my world felt like it ended at that point, I mean, my dad had prepared me a lot for this, because my dad was a very like nervous, anxious person. And so he told me the reality of the situation a very long time ago when I was a kid, and he would never let me forget it, that their situation was unstable, but that I could have the courage to withstand it, and that what they were going through, didn't have to affect me in that way if I just stayed strong and stayed focused on my goals and what I wanted to achieve. I just remember growing up and wanting so much to go to school, to get an education, go to college, and do things right. I didn't want to like stay out and party or anything like that. I was very like, I mean, I remember like finding out kids were doing like smoking weed, and I would just be like, that is so bad. You're never you're gonna get pregnant. Like, I was like that kid.
I was the same. I think I had one beer once, and I thought I was wasted, and I was like, oh my God, I went to the craziest party.
And I think that comes from, being a child of immigrants, right? It's like, being double good, because you are taught to know that your existence is not permanent, right? Your livelihood could be taken away in any moment. And so I really wanted to strive for the best. But yeah, that day they were gone, and I sort of had to spring into action. And what I did was I called my best friend, and they were family friends of my parents, and they took me in.
How old were you?
I was 14.
I mean, that's a really young age for somebody to, I feel like you had to just grow up that day. You became an adult, and you didn't have a choice.
No choice.
You just had to step into it.
I had to step into it.
This is happening now on a whole other level, right? Yes. I mean, it was always an issue, but now it's on a whole other level, and it's targeting people that are incredible contributors to society, are good citizens, or want to be good citizens, and not necessarily what they're saying, you know, that it's all criminals, etc. So
Right.
I think this is a really powerful example of a family that was trying to make the American dream that was torn apart.
When I first started sharing the story, I thought it was, you know, and I had this like new platform before Orange is the New Black, like that was, you know, my kind of like breakthrough role. I never wanted to address my parents'
Yeah.
deportation, and never wanted to talk about it, never even wanted to let it be part of like my identity until I heard all the awful things that were happening in my community, especially with Donald Trump's election, and the way that that he was galvanizing folks to sort of believe in this evil rhetoric. And let me tell you, I mean, the immigration system has been broken for decades. It's never been one that has been designed for immigrants, especially not immigrants of color. And it was honestly kind of designed so terribly to ensure, you know, Black and brown people are kept out.
Yeah.
I started to understand this more and more, that I wasn't the only one in this predicament, that there were so many families going through this. And as I started, my eyes started opening up. I started like, you know, listening to more advocacy groups. I met an incredible lawyer. She was like my age, and she was an immigration lawyer of Mexican descent. And I remember meeting her at a party, and she was getting an award for doing all this amazing work for immigrant rights. And I went up to her and I was like, I'm so interested in what you do, and it really moved me because, and then I told her my story. And this is the first time I ever heard anyone tell me, Diane, you didn't deserve that.
Wow.
You and your family didn't deserve that. And you should share your story because it would be compelling for the rest of the people who are going through this. And so the wheels started turning, and I wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to, I don't know, channel this story in some way and share it with other people who were going through it. And yeah, that's been part of my journey since 2016. And it got like a little too much for me in the way that I was doing. I mean, when my story broke, I was like up in CNN, like thinking I was some like sort of like political commentator. They were like, Diane, can you get on with like Jorge Ramos at this time? And I'm like, so that was going on a lot, and I was trying to like lend my story to as many advocacy groups, you know, that needed it. But eventually, I kind of lost my footing a bit, and I said, okay, I need to really figure out how this story can still be mine, and I can honor it, and I can use it in the way that I want, so that it's not saturated, and so I'm not like re-traumatized over and over again.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But that first time you felt seen by this immigrant lawyer,
Yes,
that won the award, I mean, that must have been such a relief. I feel like you probably were carrying the shame and guilt that it was something to do with you or something you and your family did wrong, when that wasn't the case at all.
I completely carried the notion that I deserved it, or that my family deserved it, if we were only richer, if we were only smarter, if we came from a better background, we deserved it. That we wouldn't have gone through that. I carried that for a long time, that shame. And to hear somebody well-educated that looked like me, that had all the resources in the world and didn't have to do any of this shit for free, was doing that, and saw me and saw my family's story as her own, that was big.
Yeah, this is the power of what creators, what we do, what people do when they advocate, when they speak. Somebody like you, somebody like me, we feel seen, and that can change our lives.
Absolutely.
Right? We go forward and become advocates. We start storytelling. But then when you see yourself on screen, or you meet somebody like you who's really successful, and then you're like, oh, wow, like life is possible, and I'm not like something to be ashamed of.
Yeah, and those things that like led you there, you were curious, you were imaginative, and you were honest and truthful to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And those things are so difficult for someone to like, because they shatter that, right? They want us to be furious. They want us to carry that hurt, that anger. They don't want us to investigate and work on ourselves or help others with that medicine. You were able to imagine like a new place for yourself, somewhere where like you could be seen and loved, and you can share that love with others.
The way your book impacted so many people, and also your, you know, the characters and stories you told on screen. But similarly for me, I realized there's millions of me struggling with their identity. Mm-hmm. And if they can just feel seen and heard through a talk or a podcast or a film, or just seeing you speak somewhere, you know, that's so powerful. So then I was like, I have to just keep sharing. And I do get, you know, some people being like, you're so gay and Muslim and out there, and and I would still kind of feel some sort of like shame or cringe or guilt when people would say that, like it's something wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I am. Because I need to be, and I want to be, and I want people to see that it's okay. And I want, even if I just change one person's life or make them feel inspired to do something, then that's a success.
Absolutely. And healing isn't linear, right? Like even when we're in this work, there are times where you feel like I'm doing too much, I'm not doing enough, or like I'm exhausted, or guess what I'm doing isn't moving the needle. And then you maybe put down the work, and then you kind of lose yourself and think that you weren't effective, or that you don't matter, like your voice doesn't matter. And then you find we're kind of back here 2025, and we see so many awful things that are happening in the world. And then you see your community once again attacked in this brutal, vicious, violent way. And you're like, oh, wait, no, my voice does matter. I have to like get back here. For me, I had stopped because I had to like figure out a way that I could be of service in a way that would also like service me, and so that I could stay afloat and like be sane. There was a point where I thought, my God, I'm being so embarrassing sharing my story over and over. And I thought, everyone's already heard this story. They're so sick of me, I'm sure. And about a month ago, I hear about a young girl who was 11. Her name is Jocelyn Carrasco Roja. And she was a little girl who was being bullied at school because her parents were undocumented, and the kids were bullying her about calling ICE on her family, and this girl was terrified. The school officials gave her like counseling but didn't advise her family. And this little girl ended up taking her life, 11 years old, because she was so afraid that her parents would be taken away. And I saw that story and I go, my God, that's me.
Yeah. And it's, how is it happening again? I mean, it never stopped, but like.
Yeah. I mean, they're going, I mean, we've seen with like people who are being targeted because they exercise freedom of speech, because they protested a genocide. Now these people are being targeted. Now young children are being, ICE is going into schools.
Yeah. You're probably reliving so much trauma. And I think with children, it's just so hard. Like, what? Like, let the children be. Like, what?
I mean, but that's how, like, violent it's gotten. That's how insidious it is. That's how, like, just utterly disrespectful to human life it is. And this country doesn't take the immigration process or the immigration system seriously. They see it as sort of some nuisance when it's really a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
And I mean, I won't even get into like what this administration is doing wrong. But the reason why I want to continue talking about this, and when I saw Jocelyn's or heard about Jocelyn's story, I said, oh, this is what the opposition does. It kind of wears you down. It makes you feel like you're screaming out into this void, but you're not. And storytelling is medicine. Mm-hmm. Look, I don't know if I would have went to speak to Jocelyn's school, or I don't know if she would have read my book, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
But I am responsible for sharing the medicine, right? We are responsible to sharing the medicine that we have with our community.
I think it's really important, and I hope that we get to see your book become a show and a movie, and also, your advocacy go forward. So you transitioned all of a sudden into adulthood at 14. It wasn't all dark and awful. I know life went on, and you reconnected with your family in Colombia, and now you're spending a lot of time there, and there's so much beauty that's come out of it. But so tell me about 14 to bottle service girl in New York, and then you went on to Netflix. But what happened there? Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, so high school ended, and I did my big recital, right? My senior year recital. But I had decided before that recital that I was done with the arts. I didn't see myself represented. I didn't see there was a possibility. I'm like, how do I get in the television? It was like a little kid who's like, how do I get in there? You know what I mean? But for me, it wasn't like, oh, how do I physically get my body in there? It was like, I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know any way. I don't have any contacts. And so I said, I'm going to study politics because I want to get on TV somehow, and I'm going to be a journalist.
I love that. You would have been great. And
maybe.
I studied political science too. I was political science and French.
Okay.
And I was law school bound.
Okay, cute.
Because of Elwoods.
Okay, yes, exactly.
I
saw Elwoods too, and I was like, what? Like, it's hard?
Yeah, exactly. And I still want to go to Harvard Law. Maybe when I'm 50, I'll do Harvard Law.
Yes.
And I want to do that application video and everything.
Or get an honorary degree like I did.
They should be giving me an honorary degree.
And you'll get one. You
Yes.
continue doing the work and you'll
Inshallah.
get one.
Yeah.
Inshallah, you'll get one. You want something, you go after it. At that moment, I thought, I really love the arts, but I thought I'm not going anywhere here. So I studied politics. I saw that it was like really hard, okay? Because even with that, you need certain skills that perhaps you don't have. You still need connections. You still need all of these things that they tell. I mean, look, you could bootstrap and like get to work, but I mean, there's a lot of obstacles for a young girl with no family and no help with loans or any like tuition. So I was like, so then I turned to the nightlife, honey.
I love it. Well, you know what I was saying, and I think you and Jackie also have talked about this and this concept, but we've really overlooked bottle service girls in terms of like sharing their stories. I mean, I remember being in Miami and I would see these bottle service girls were kind of like icons. They would be driving around like Porsches and like just so fabulous. Like I think it's like a moment in life that people need to talk. It's not like, it's actually an amazing career if you're like, there were some that were like trying to save money for med school. There was obviously,
yes, honey, we were all saving money for med school.
I know
we were all saving the money for med school.
But I think there's something to it, and obviously that career has an expiration date. But there's a moment in time where it's so fun and fabulous, and like I think you guys have to create that show or series around it because you both lived it. So tell us about. So you graduated, you came to New York.
Yes.
Political career down the toilet.
Journalism
down the toilet.
I really tried. She tried.
So you're like, okay, I'm going to try this. How did you know about bottle? I mean, you were going out at the time.
So I was like, I was going out at the time. And like at the time, Craigslist was like popular.
God. I remember Craigslist.
Like before the Craigslist killer.
Yeah. Buying like furniture, also the missed connections.
Yes, all of it. Like, I mean, feet photos, dirty socks, whatever, you name it, you got it. But there was like an arts and entertainment section, and because I had tried like working in retail, and I had done everything. I was like passing out hot tamales in the street. I was working at a law office as a secretary. I was doing all sorts of shit, but it was like no money was coming in, and I was like, I need something that's gonna pay. So I was like waitressing. But then I did restaurant work, and just like, I don't know, people were like too mean to me, and like brunch was hell. So I was like, I don't know about this.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
So then I saw that there was like work for nightlife, and I was like, I can party.
Yeah.
So I saw kind of like fast money during that time, and also you got to like, drink with your friends.
You meet so many interesting people who I think become friends. Regular clients, but then you kind of see them outside of work.
Do you know how many like sons of like sultans like that I have like that are like still hitting me like, what's up, D? Like, you don't go to the clubs in Boston no more. I'm like, oh my God, Sultan. Like his name was actually Sultan.
Does he want to finance our projects?
Oh, I know, right? I need to hit him up.
Yes.
Because they had
that would be a full circle moment.
They had some nice money for bottles, so why not fund our dreams together?
Correct.
So I did that, and like with that, I formed a really nice relationship with the girls there, and
where you were at Tao, or where?
No, I wasn't at Tao. Like that was too fancy for me. I was at this place called the Underbar, and then when I was in New York, I worked at 49 Grove.
Ooh.
Do you remember 49
No.
Grove? It was like this little basement. Oh my God, I've met so many people there. Met a boyfriend there. It was a nice time, but when I was working there, the girls like insisted that I take acting classes. They were like, "What are you doing? Like, don't you want to be an actor? Like, you would be such a good actor." And I was just like, I don't know the first thing about that. And
but you had obviously the theater training.
Well, I didn't do theater in Boston Arts Academy. I sang.
You sang.
I was in the music department, but I did do a couple of theater shows where I would be like the music accompaniment.
Okay.
But I wasn't like, I didn't physically act in the shows. So it was still like really foreign to me. And so the girls are like, they all pitched in and
Wow,
bought me a beginner's acting class.
Where, what school, do you remember?
It was called Boston Casting.
Oh, because you were in Boston.
I was in Boston at the time. Yeah. I was
That's
in
so
Boston
sweet. Are you still in touch with these girls?
Oh yeah, I'm in touch with a lot of them. Yeah,
That's so incredible that they all pitched in.
They
you
all
see,
pitched
this is the whole thing. It's all community. Like, we have to just support each other.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
and then
amazing.
the rest is history. I started taking a bunch of classes and was still working in nightlife.
You in Boston at the time. So when did the Orange, like, you just auditioned and it happened, or you had an agent at this time?
So like what happened was, while I was in Boston, I got like co-star.
Oh, co-star.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it was just so long ago. I'm just kidding. I'm just like bullet. I'll take a co-star. But at the time, I got a co-star on this show called Body of Proof, where I just had to like run over a dead body because I fell asleep. And I played a waitress. So I remember like, I was like, Lord, I'm going to do this audition. And like, if I don't get this part for falling asleep while driving and running over a dead body, I had no lines. If I didn't get this, I'm out of here.
Yeah, like what?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, all this training, I better get this.
I was like, if I don't get this, I'm out of here. I got the part. And
Amazing.
that's all I needed.
Thank God. Thank you for giving her the part.
Thank you so much. But that's all I needed to like be like, see, I'm going to New York. And I
love it.
and I went to New York and I kind of just tried to do the same thing that I was doing in Boston and New York. I started taking classes at Susan Batson Studios. Oh. And they had like industry nights there, and I met a manager there by just doing like a monologue, and then I auditioned for Orange is the New Black like a few months after, and then that's where I met Jackie.
And how was that process? Like, was it multiple callbacks, or they were like, you're it, or?
No, it was funny. Like, I auditioned for it, and then I didn't hear back for like weeks, like maybe almost a month. I didn't hear, and there was no callback, there was no nothing, and then I got a call saying, oh, they just offered you 7 episodes.
What was that feeling?
I remember I was in Makeup Forever because my friend was a makeup artist and she was studying at Makeup Forever, and she was like literally putting a beak on me, like a prosthetic
Oh
beak,
my God.
because she was doing like this like Phoenix Rising thing.
Wow.
And I had this beak on, and my manager calls me, and I just started jumping up and down like a phoenix. I was like, and like I just remember my wings just spread, and I'm like, okay, so I may not be the most talented in the room, the smartest in the room, but if I say yes to myself, if I put myself out there, regardless of how afraid I am, regardless of what I know, I don't know anything. I went in there. I didn't even know who was gonna. I didn't know Jason Biggs was in it. I didn't know Natasha Lyonne was in it. I mean, I was huge admirers of these people, Laura Pepperon. But I went in there. I wanted it. I knew this character. I was like, I can do this. So it was just like one of those moments where saying yes to yourself like worked out. And yes, there's gonna be a bunch of no's, but if you keep saying yes to yourself, then
so true.
there's something out there for you.
You have to believe it. If you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to believe in you?
Right.
I mean, you have to be your biggest advocate.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And then I think doing this show, all of a sudden now you're this like advocate by proxy of Latina representation on screen. You're now part of a show that became literally, I think, the biggest. It made Netflix at that time. Like this concept didn't exist, and I think it informed all streaming networks. Like, so you really were part of a huge movement. I mean, did you feel that pressure?
I was so unhealed that I literally just thought everything was about me. I had no idea. I was just like, everybody hates me. I can't act. And no, I'm just like, what am I doing? I don't have like a big enough part. I was like worried about all the wrong things. I wasn't seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Jackie was good for that.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk. So when did you first meet? Did you have a chemistry read at all since you were besties, or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't even think they had that planned for us. I think that they saw us in
It evolved.
It evolved. They saw us in a scene together, and I think it kind of went there. But she would remind me of like how monumental this was for us and for like the entire space. And you know, when I was kind of like just looking here, she kind of had she's a smart girl. She has an expansive view of things, and she can like step out and have perspective, which is why I loved her on the show and why we became such good friends, because she was like constantly, you know, thinking about all these little things and really helped me to feel like I really had a friend there, you know, kind of like helping guide me and guide those insecurities and stuff that I was.
That's amazing. On such a major platform to find somebody like that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you're doing the show. You became a series regular or no?
No, never.
But that's because you got other projects, right?
I was waiting for the series regular role, and it wasn't coming, honey. So I was like, okay, I must expand. So yeah, so I like in that process, like when we weren't working, I would audition like crazy. I started going to LA to audition and putting myself out there in those ways, and I kept booking stuff.
You got Jane the Virgin.
Jane the Virgin, yes, as Lena, Jane's best friend. And after that, I shot a bunch of pilots and things that like never went into the air, but it was still kind of like everything that happened was motivation for me to continue going and continue exploring and continue staying like curious about the work.
And then you had Doom Patrol.
And then Doom Patrol, yes.
HBO, right?
Yeah.
So now you've done Netflix, Jane the Virgin with CW.
Exactly.
So another network. Then you had HBO.
Well, before that, I got a CBS show called Superior Donuts. I did a second season.
Oh, I remember. Okay, yes.
It was like
Wow.
a studio audience multicam.
So now it's sort of like you're progressing more into yourself, and then you land Disney.
Yes.
That is insane.
Yeah,
How
that
it
was
was, and that was such a beautiful full circle moment because it was all about your singing too.
Yeah, it's something that I was like so afraid of doing too. I would often like if there was an audition that like had music in it or anything like that, like I wouldn't even approach it because I didn't think I was good enough. And when this opportunity came, I was like, okay, honey, do what you have to do, but you're gonna audition for this and you're gonna like put your best foot forward. And like I kind of like implemented all those things that I did in the beginning, which was like you have to really like believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And like who knows, maybe your singing isn't the best, but maybe you have some other qualities that they're looking for. You don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that call was really, really special for in particular for the story that was going to be told.
Encanto. I mean, my nieces are obsessed with everybody. It's like one of those things that'll go on forever, I think.
Yeah, it was such a surreal experience.
And was it always Isabella that you auditioned for, or you didn't know? You were just auditioning in general?
I didn't know who I was auditioning for.
And then they offered you
and then
Isabella.
they assigned it.
Which is so perfect.
It was
I
so
think
perfect.
Isabella's so perfect for you.
She is. She's so reprimida. What's it called? How do you say reprimida in Spanish? No, in English.
What does it mean, reprimida?
Reprimida. Kind of like someone who's like just bursting to be themselves.
Yes.
You know,
which is
like
you.
yeah. Hello, repressed. Oh my God, somebody. This is what happened when I didn't finish law school. She's such a repressed character, and she's like just dying to be herself, you know, and to be like her authentic self, which really resonated with me at the time. I was like trying to fit into like so many different versions of what I thought people wanted me to be, or as I understood Hollywood wanted.
Yeah.
And like nothing would work. I felt so lost at that time because I just didn't feel seen.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing all of these shows and my career was advancing, and also I guess my advocacy work was progressing as well too, and which is something I had never experienced before. But I was like the most lost.
But that's why the scene accepted, free, empowered is so important, because at that point I feel like you had the accepted, free, and empowered, but you weren't feeling seen. So like we can alternate between having the different aspects of that SAFE acronym, but I think when you really hit all of them and you step into that authenticity, everything just starts falling into place. And I think now what's amazing is people are encouraged so much to be themselves. Like we still have the Hollywood tropes and the things that, where we feel we have to be something, but so many people are being celebrated just for who they are. I think now it's even more celebrated to kind of be as authentic as you can be.
Oh,
and I think that
absolutely.
lands you the roles and the parts and the money and the investment and all of it.
And it's not being so like, when we first came out on the scene, like the girls from Orange, it was like, oh, they're queer, they're here, they're, of color. And it was like...
all the stereotypical...
just like, exactly. I'm like, they were just like putting so much emphasis on like our identity as like what kind of like, not even on who we were, but like on what communities we were from, or like sexual orientation, or like the fact that like, there wasn't a lot of representation, and they kind of like, they put so much of that pressure and sort of kind of like makes you focus on that as the artist too, when like we shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like go out there and be like represented. I want to tell stories, and like stories that are not told.
Yeah.
And yes, they include our culture, and they include like things that you don't know about us. But often what happens is like the media or whoever is just focused on like those things, and then will turn around and tell you that you shouldn't be focused on those things.
Yeah.
But you're focused on those things, and that's all you're talking about. You're not talking about my talent, you're not talking about the actual storytelling. You're talking about these like attributes that I have, and like, you know, asking me to thank somebody for just letting me in the door.
That's why it's important for us to see ourselves in just everyday human stories, right? So it's sort of not about a Latina in this world, but it's just sort of, she just happens to be a fashion editor. But it's, you know, like, and then the story is not about her struggling with her identity as Latina and living this like Spanglish world, but it's just who she is, and she's dating this guy, and she's doing this, and she's doing that, and her identity can inform like funny things. We want to show some of those stereotypes and jokes on screen so that we laugh with each other, not at each other. And
also just like let people who have those experience do the writing, do the directing, do all of it, right? Like the problem with like stories that show us as one-dimensional characters are because people who don't have our experience are writing our stories, and then the public sees it and is like, oh, this doesn't work, it's no good. Well, it's no good because it has no reality to it. It doesn't come from a real place. And obviously we've seen people do this, and shows are successul. You just have to give space for these stories to exist. You don't need to like feel lost or feel like you have to explain why a person of color is like a CEO of something, whatever it is.
Just happen to be there.
They just happen to be there. Just like we don't have to explain how a white person does it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You don't gotta, it's like, but how is it going to be believable, this person? Bring in the abuela. Like,
exactly.
Bitch, I don't need the abuela.
She's like super fashionable in New York, and then she goes home and she's like, she's making tamales.
She's like, Mama, ¿cómo está? And no, it's like...
And her Spanish is broken, and she like is struggling with her identity.
I can't with those stories. I can't.
So Encanto happened, and then sort of after that, was it the pandemic right after that?
Yeah, it was during the pandemic.
It was during the pandemic, and then you moved to Colombia.
I did.
Kind of another full circle moment, like a return to another home of sorts. That must have been really healing, and then to actually like reconnect with your family in a really beautiful way.
Yes, so in 2020, when the pandemic was happening, my dad got sick. He was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh no.
And I was living in LA, and I heard this and I go, I don't have enough time. What do I do? Like, I had focused so much on my career and like doing all of this work so that my parents could be proud, or so I would have enough to offer them. It was like one of those moments where I literally began to spiral. So I left LA and I went to Colombia. Not before I entered rehab. I was like not in a good place. And I said, I need help. And I need help if I'm going to be able to handle this process that my father is going through.
And I didn't even know that part of the rehab part of your story.
I know, I'm giving you the SafeTea.
The SafeTea, which is, I think it's so important though, because I think people can see people's lives on Instagram and think we all have it so together. And I think it's important to hear these things.
Thank you.
That you can have, that the struggle is part of the human existence.
Yeah.
And so we're all going to have these like big ups and highs, and then we're going to have to go through things to evolve. And it's nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed of. Like, I think it's the healthiest thing to do, to ask for help and look for help.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. And that was like the only way that I knew how to connect. I developed it. And, they often say like, okay, you needed that at that time. That's what helped you get through. And then of course, after a while, that it became a nuisance. It wasn't something that you were using to survive. It was just like, it was impeding your survival at that point. And so when I learned about my dad, I like acted fast. I was like, okay, I have to do this part of like work on myself, like go and be with professionals and like people that can help me through this. And I remember being honest with my dad, and my dad gave me the space to do that. And he understood. I mean, God, I grew up with so much chaos. I mean, I didn't know how to love. I didn't know how to make connections. So that was like the only way that I kind of discovered how.
When you were saying with your dad and about, he became sick and you were like, I don't have time. You missed so much of those formative years with him, right? Because they weren't with you.
That's right.
And I do think things change. Like even for me, as we get older, like my parents live in Pakistan now and they come back and forth. But they're getting old. And so it's funny how things just shift and you're like prioritizing, instead of taking a trip with friends somewhere, going to visit them or whatever it is, because you're realizing that time is limited.
Yeah, it is limited and in the moment, like, you know, I was like kind of wasting time, you know, feeling sorry for myself, sort of like stuck in this cycle. You know, I've since forgiven myself and given myself grace,
Which
because
is great.
I didn't know, you know, and I didn't think that my dad was going to get sick and then go so fast. So I got to Colombia. My dream was to buy a home like in nature, like a farm that my dad could come and live with me. And that the plan was for him to like recuperate there, because I just saw when I got there, I was like, this is why my dad's not well. It's like he's living in the city. He's not in nature. Like his dream was always to go back to the farm that he grew up in. I'm going to give this to him. I'm going to save him. But, you know, ultimately I couldn't. But I got the house.
Yeah. And some beautiful memories and time with him.
Yes,
I'm sure that was like a really beautiful time for both of you and your whole family. So
yeah, it was it was horrible, babe.
it was horrible.
Sorry. My dad was in a lot of pain and my family was just so disconnected.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of came into this place like I had 2 months to fix it. And, you know, just wasn't enough time. But
well, I think you tried.
I
and
did.
I think that's beautiful, and that's really important.
Well, the funny thing with this is like, not funny, but kind of like divine thing that happened was I was like looking for these 2 months for this home that my dad could recuperate in. And on the last day where I figured out, okay, I'm going to go look at this place, and if it works, it works. But if it doesn't, I'm moving on from this idea. And I failed. And I found the house, and I was like, this is it. And I went to see my dad that day, and I said, Dad, I found it. I found the house, and I signed the papers. And I should have looked at the house a little more, because the roof was, you know, coming down, and there was
I know, buying a house is hard.
Exactly, especially if you have like a time crunch. You're like,
country.
somebody's dying here. If I get them the Encanto house, magically my dad will be okay.
Casa Madrigal. You were trying to find Casa Madrigal.
And I actually did. This thing looks like the Casa Madrigal.
Oh, I can't wait to visit.
And so I went to him and I said, Dad, I got it. And he goes, Eso está bien, hija. That is good, my daughter. And that day he went.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And now I'm finding myself in Colombia with this house without my dad. And I was like, oh my God, I sold my house in LA. Like, what am I going to do with this the roof is falling. There's like giant spiders everywhere. So I spent the last 3 years healing and accepting a lot that he was gone, that it wasn't my responsibility to save him, and that somehow his death, this farm, this kind of transformation in my life is saving me.
And all happened for some reason.
Yes.
And so I think people sometimes, especially in Hollywood and creative industries, think taking these breaks or reprieves is like the end of your career. And I think it's so important because it was such a healing, transformative time and a difficult time. But again, like I think people need to hear this. Like you can disappear for 3 years if you need to.
Please disappear for 2 years if you need to, honey.
Yeah, go somewhere, come back as someone new, whatever you need to. And sometimes it's healthy to take that break.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you had, that you're having this reconnection to Colombia and in nature and all of this. And still having some fabulous times. We reconnected in Paris.
Yeah.
On a trip with our other mutual friend, Erica. Shout out to Erica Williams. I have to say, like, this moment, because that was when about 2.5 years ago, maybe. And that's when I wanted to go into acting, producing, something I always wanted to do as a kid. And I started taking classes and was just starting in it. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were at dinner at Hotel Costs and we were sitting next to each other. And I said, we're going to do something.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I do remember.
And then fast forward to August 2024, we're in 25. We did a short film, a really big, ambitious short film called Poreless Together, which I'm so grateful that you agreed to do, because I never thought, this fabulous Netflix, HBO, CW, Disney star would
Honey,
would agree to be in my first movie.
I was looking for work. No, and not only that, but that is literally my dream, Akbar, is to work with my friends, is to work in spaces that are safe. Sorry, I keep doing that.
I
but
love
like,
it, but it's so
but that
true.
are and that are like abundant in love. Like it's literally all I want to do. So when my friends ask me like, "Hey, I'm going through this like a creative endeavor, and I would love for you to be part of it," that is like a dream come true for me.
And it's so special that you
Yeah.
think like that. So thank you. And it was fucking good because we're going to Tribeca.
Hello?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's super exciting. And obviously that's not all you're doing now. You have this really incredible movie called The Whistler,
Yes.
right? Which filmed in Colombia, right?
It's a story about like an old folklore tale, right? You know, kind of like La Llorona, or like, you know, those stories that
Yeah.
they tell you when you're kids.
Ooh, like a horror?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's not a horror. After the
like
edit.
folklore. But I love that shit. In Pakistan, we have jinns, and that
Yeah.
grandparents always scare you, like, don't go in the garden after sunset. They live in the trees.
Exactly.
It's
exactly that.
I'm still scared to this day.
I'm scared too. I was like scared watching it. I recently watched it and I jumped a few times. Like, oh, okay, this is like really funky and interesting and like also scary. It's like a suspense thriller folklore. And obviously, it kind of shows you a side of a culture that we often don't hear about. It's a Venezuelan story, and it's set in Colombia, which is like beautiful. And the film is bilingual, and I think it does a lot of cool like different things. I haven't seen a film like it, so I'm
And it's in
excited.
Spanish? Or?
It's in Spanish and English.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Which is so great because I feel like so many shows and movies and all are mix of languages.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really like even our Fazia, who was our producer, writer for Poreless, you saw Queen of My Dreams, her incredible directorial debut feature. And it had this mix of Urdu and English. I would say it's probably more 60-70% English, but it was so nice to see this other language in like an everyday setting. Like this is the future. It's like not one language.
People are like progressing.
Yeah.
Progressing in some ways,
Slowly
digressing in others.
but surely. I know. There's a lot of going forward and a lot of going back happening right now. That's the vibes.
Yeah. What we need to think about, I think, is like stop limiting ourselves, you know, because of something that hasn't been done or something that isn't like typically like popular or something like that. Like any time that I have gone with an idea to someone and they tell me, oh, well, no one's going to buy that because XYZ. It's like, and I've let myself kind of like be kind of put down in that way that, and typically it doesn't happen. So typically, so what? So typically we let people just make garbage and we're just going to typically allow that? Like,
Hell no.
No.
We've been talking about how we're transforming, elevating, and affirming our communities. I think in a lot of the conversation we've had. But what's next for you? So you have obviously our movie at Tribeca. You have The Whistler coming out. You're doing your first ever theater performance.
Yes. I think right now it's called NA.
NA, yeah, that's what it was. So I saw it originally in New York, where Anna Villafan plays the AOC character and Holland Taylor plays Nancy Pelosi. And in June, you'll be playing AOC in the Berkshires at which theater? It was a really fabulous one.
The Barrington Stage.
The Barrington Stage. It's
The Barrington Stage.
I feel like that's like so Downton Abbey. I need to come in my like finest pre-revolution looks, you know?
I don't know. I
like,
think people wear Tivas down there.
Tivas?
I won't
Okay,
disparage
okay.
anyone. Tivas are fine.
Well, I might be overdressed, but that's normal for me.
You need to be overdressed.
Yeah, I need to be overdressed.
You need to be fabulous at all times.
And I know you were really looking for this because you've done so much and you were looking for this challenge and it came to you. And for anybody who doesn't know NA, look it up and you will hopefully go watch Diane in it. But it is a really challenging play. I mean, it's literally one setting. And it's all in one act, essentially. There's no like intermission. I guess that's one act, right?
Well, no, because there's
one full go.
There's like, I think there's like
four acts, but
yeah.
it's one, like we don't get to go pee. And
no one gets to go pee.
No drink breaks. And so that's a challenge. It's just go, go, go. And it's not a musical. You're talking.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for you. How do you feel about exploring the sort of new stage?
Gosh, for me, it's like everything that I wanted, everything that I asked the universe for. I went to bed one night and I, like practicing like my manifestation, my manifesting and like trying to be as specific as possible as for like what I want in my life. And I asked the universe for something challenging, for something that would like let me work on my craft. It's like you know, every day you're I mean, you're a working actor, right? You're reading, you're watching film, you're writing, you're auditioning, you're doing all of these things, but like when you don't have like a solid gig going on at the time, it's easy for you to feel, for your belief in yourself to sort of waver,
of course.
you know? And so at this point, I'm like, I really just want to exercise my craft. I want to be better. I want to show myself what I can do.
Yeah.
And so the universe said, okay, honey, here you go.
Here you go.
Yeah, take this.
Not just any play. You're
No.
playing AOC.
Exactly.
And you get no potty breaks.
Nobody breaks in the play AOC. So I'm excited because obviously it's a political play. And obviously, like when you saw it, what year was it when you saw it?
I saw it last year, I think. Yeah.
It's super relevant.
Yeah.
It has
Even
really,
more relevant now,
Absolutely.
than ever.
And it has a really cool dynamic between these like two women, and I think it comments a lot on like women relationships, professional female relationships, and
this old guard, new guard in politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it talks about a lot of the stuff that I'm also passionate about
Yeah.
in politics. It talks a lot about immigration and the desire to dismantle a system that is violent and hurting people. And, you know, old guard is saying, well, there are rules and ways to do things if you want to get anything done. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting play
Yeah.
for anybody who wants to go see it, and a real big challenge for me.
I can't wait to see it. And you're going to be amazing.
I'm getting closer to my authenticity. You know, I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm allowing myself to go there in my creative process and like trust it a lot more, and not sit by the phone and like, do they like me? Do they really like me? You know, like ending that sort of incessant need for external validation
Yes.
that I think
Oh
has
my
been
God.
so hurtful
Yeah.
to so many people, including myself, and really start listening to like that lady in there in your
Yes.
gut. That's my tattoo. This medicine woman.
I love it.
She represents my intuition and my ability to heal myself.
We have to listen to our gut. It's the only guiding light and truth, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gut, can I do this? Should I do this? Well, gut says you're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. Why are you asking
Why are
me,
you
bitch?
asking me, bitch? Do whatever the fuck you want. You know how it goes. She's like smoking a cigarette.
You need to make a cartoon of that. You're going to play the gut.
It's the gut, right? It's the gut, and my uterus has like also a personality. The whole gang's here.
Well, we got to get into our movie we just did. Yes, it's a short, but it's an ambitious, big, huge short. Poor Liz. So I play Akram, this fabulous gay, queer, Muslim beauty entrepreneur who I think is confused, and he's obviously very gay, but you know, he's still struggling. And you play Ruby, my bestie. Mm-hmm. And we uncover some big truths, like Genie from Aladdin is Muslim.
Right.
And I think gay also.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely from the queer community.
Definitely from the queer community. But it was so much fun. And I know like we had, because it's a short, it was one short scene together, but it was so special to have you there because it's unnerving, you know, and you were like so good. I think it took us 2 hours to get one of my takes, but you were just like in it. And you did the improv thing which helped, and that's when we got the Genie line, which they ended up using.
I'm so glad they did.
Yeah,
and
it's so funny. Like I think different festival directors have like quoted that.
Really?
Yeah, like that was really funny.
Yay.
It goes to show like about holding space and what you were saying for friends, and just even on set, I think you were what they call an actor's actor, because you stayed in throughout. So thank you. But it was fun. We had so much fun.
We had fun. I mean, that's why you get into this, because it's
Yeah.
it's just so much fun. If you go, in my opinion, like you get to set and you're just kind of like a grouch. I mean, unless you're playing a grouch.
Yeah.
But even still, don't be a grouch. Like this is like such a fun gig, and we just get to just play all day.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you. And you will see us slaying on the red carpet together.
Okay.
But, well, that was really fun. I think everybody learned a lot, I'm sure. I hope you all took notes. But so we end every episode with this lightning round, just fun stuff. So what is your favorite comfort food or home-cooked meal?
Oh, I love lentil and meatball soup that my mom
Ooh.
makes.
Yum. That sounds so good.
It's so yummy. That and with rice and fried plantain.
I want that right now.
I want it right now.
No vegans and vegetarians in this room.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. What's your go-to Delulu thought that keeps you going?
I think it's a song in Gypsy, the musical.
Oh.
Some people. I don't know why. Sometimes when I'm just like walking down the street and it's a sunny day and I see a lot of life happening around me and, you know, I'm particularly feeling good, I think about that song in connection to like my aspirations of like wanting to break free from like my own chains, so to speak, of like restricting anything that comes out of me. And so that song just comes up. Some people can get a thrill knitting sweaters and sitting still. And she's just like a kind of like old lady, you know, trying to get her daughters, you know, in the big time. She's, you know, she has like aspirations of like being a star. And I just imagine myself as that lady, kind of just like going for it no matter what.
I love that. That was a really good, we haven't had that creative of a response to this, but I'm going to now go look that up, and I think everyone should.
Watch Gypsy. It's so
Gypsy.
good, yes, and listen to the soundtrack. So good.
Similarly, what is your safe word or a mantra or grounding phrase when things get really loud or heavy? Like, what is that sort of grounding thought?
One thing I've learned with my therapist has been to say, curious, not furious.
I like that.
Yeah, so
Curious, not furious.
Curious, not furious.
I feel like that's a future tattoo or something.
I know,
it's so
right?
good. It's so good. And then finally, what is one piece of advice you wish someone gave you while you were still finding your safety?
Enjoy the moment. I know that sounds so like lame.
No, but it's true because it just goes.
It just goes. Well, first of all, there's two things. Like, forget about time. Like, time doesn't exist. But there's also no time. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. I'm a big believer in like there's no such thing as time. It's just this linear, like me in 8th grade is still happening now with me sitting here with you.
Yeah.
And with the future me with like our really successful production company, a couple of words under our belt.
Yeah.
It's also happening at the same time. Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. No, I like that. I think it's really true because I'm like, I don't know, I'm 39 going on 40 and I'm like, I still feel sometimes like that middle school, like bullied tubby kid, you know, and then it's like, what happened? We just fast forwarded here, but so much happened.
Right.
It's so true.
And so much happened. And like, we worried so much about things that like in the end didn't matter. And what if we would have, it worked out in the end. Everything works out in the end the way it's supposed to. I will say this one thing too. If you are struggling with trauma, I found that something that has really helped me has been mushroom therapy, like psychedelic mushroom therapy, guided. I'm not saying go do it with yourself. I don't know, check your heart or whatever, like if you need to.
Yeah, I think there's ways to do it in a safe and healthy way. I've explored plant medicine with a guide and with, you know, I think obviously, yes, I think to anyone listening and watching, disclaimer, like this is not medical advice, but I think you have to speak with health professionals. But I think people are exploring that in a big way. There's such a big movement in science right now around that.
It really, just for me, I've been doing talk therapy for a while now. I've been doing group stuff. And along with that, I recently did a guided session, and it just continues to like shock me, like how much my life is changing after that, how many things I was able to like confront and understand and let go and honor about my life. And so I feel like in this moment that I need to share that medicine with other people, that if they are struggling with PTSD or any sort of like childhood trauma, that for me, it has been really eye-opening and healing. So
that's beautiful.
That's all I'll say.
Thank you for sharing. This was such a good conversation. Thank you for sharing so many honest truths and all this light. Where can we find you online? Where can people follow you? And then when The Whistler is coming out, all of that good stuff.
You can follow me on Diane X Guerrero. That's on IG. And then, I don't know, Google me.
Google me, baby.
Google me, babes.
And you can still order. I just recently got another copy of Diane's book, In the Country We Love, A Family Divided, on Amazon and probably any bookshop. So definitely give it a read. I think it'll be really eye-opening for everything that's happening now and hopefully inspirational. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Of course.
Love you.
Yay, love you too.
For more conversations like this, subscribe to us at the SafeTea, and we'll see you next time.